Half of my body was amputated after being crushed by a forklift. My name is Lauren Showers. At that time, he was only 19 years old and was working 10 meters up when I ended up falling to the ground. It was at that moment that a forklift ran over me, crushing the lower half of my body. The shock was immediate and the pain unbearable. Everything happened very fast. I was soon rushed to the hospital. The doctors presented me with two options, both of which I found difficult to accept. The first was to try to rebuild half of my body from the waist down, but the chances of survival were slim. The second alternative was to cut off that half of my body, which would increase my chances of survival. Even in that moment of despair, I told the doctors that I would rather survive, if only my head was left. So the doctors took the drastic decision and removed half of my body. Also, due to the accident, I lost part of one of my arms. Now I depend on the bags for my needs since the evacuation channels have been eliminated. Despite all the adversity, I did not give up. I wanted to live and find happiness somehow. I often say that, despite everything, the most important thing is that I am alive. The rest is a matter of adaptation. I underwent numerous physical therapy sessions to gain as much independence as possible. Learning to get into the wheelchair on my own was a challenge, but I was willing to overcome it. Life moved on and I found love. I'm now engaged and have plans to marry my girlfriend. Many times people ask us what our marriage will be like, and we always answer that the love we feel for each other is what really matters. Circumstances may have changed drastically for me, but the feeling is genuine and deep. So that's my story. A journey of improvement, adaptation, and discovery of what really matters in life. And you? What do you think of this story? Feel free to comment and like. Thanks for the support.
Just when I thought I heard about all the worst cults in history, this one had to come and blow them out of the water. This is Colonia Dignidad. They were a German torture cult hiding out in the Chilean wilderness after World War II, aka Yazis. And to show you how terrible they were, let me tell you a story. Now, as a quick reminder, if you want more info, you can check out the podcast. The leader of this cult was a known child abuser, and he wanted more Chilean boys to be brought to him. So he started a hospital in the community and used it as a trafficking system to get more children. One day, a young Chilean boy choked and was rushed to the hospital. And right when he got there, a nurse scooped him up, brought him to a room, and saved his life. But later that day, his sister arrived and asked a nurse when she could pick him up to take him home. And the nurse responded that they needed to monitor him for a few more days, which is pretty suspect in a choking case. So a few days later, she comes back and she's like, okay, can I get my brother? And the nurse tells her that he's not there anymore. And this is because the hospital had lawyers on staff that were drafting up adoption paperwork when young boys would come in. The cult was able to legally adopt boys in the community without the parents' consent, and the parents had not enough money to do anything about it. There are so many more stories about this place, and I had never heard of it before, so make sure you check out this week's episode for more info.
But I want to tell you something, and I want you to really listen. We should have been in that crash.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months and they gave it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that. But what you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off. I just got a text message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
He said a 12-year-old male showed up with tape around his legs Thursday asking for help, said he was afraid asking for police. The male does have duct tape around each ankle. He's not telling the RP why, and said that there's sores around his wrists and ankles. The RP is becoming emotional regarding the child's health.
I'm getting jiggy with a rifle. I'll pull the trigger with my eyes closed.
This TikToker known as Snow the Salt Queen and Yandere Freak killed her own friend, and she pretty much got away with it. So this is the real Snow the Salt Queen, Mary Ann Oliver Snow. And in January of 2021, she was involved in a tragic shooting. So before all of this went down, Snow the Salt Queen had a massive profile on TikTok with almost 2 million followers. She was constantly posting lip-syncing content, cosplay content, sort of similar to this.
Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, they want me to go eat some more.
Basically videos that were big on TikTok from 2020 to 2021, that kind of era. But this story took a dramatic twist when on January 16th, 2021, Mary, aka Snow the Salt Queen, and 7 of her friends were hosting a watch party for a Batman TV show inside of this house in Houston, Texas. So here's how this all allegedly went down. So at one point during the night, the whole group had been drinking Cokes with vodka. They had been making videos to post on social media, and Mary went out to the garage and retrieved a Glock handgun. Now, according to people that were there, Mary boasted that this gun was almost like the gun that the villain the Penguin has in the Batman movies. And she pretended to shoot one of her friends, pulled the trigger, and for some reason the trigger clicked and the gun didn't go off. But that's when 18-year-old Helen Rose Hastings allegedly, according to Mary, said, "Shoot me." So according to Mary, they were joking around, so she walked over to Helen, placed the pistol right up to her head, and pulled the trigger. Now, according to Mary, she thought that the gun was unloaded, but when she pulled the trigger with the gun up to Helen's forehead, it fired. Now, obviously, this bullet blew through Helen's forehead and she died in the hospital 2 days later. Obviously, Mary was then brought in by the authorities. Now, according to the people that were there who came rushing into the room after the shooting, they all said that this was completely unintentional, this was an accident, but the family of Helen actually thinks that there may have been some sort of evil motive behind the shooting. They've gone on the record and said that their daughter would never ask anybody to shoot her. She's even suggested that Mary and the other people that were there at the party may have had time to actually get their stories straight before calling the police, so they had one narrative that ran through the night. But regardless, after that party, a person was dead. And shortly afterwards, Snow the Salt Queen started posting to their social media again with a lot of tasteless images. This is actually one of the images that Mary posted after the murder, which shows bloody handprints on a wall behind her. So there's no real resolution in this case yet. Mary has been charged with manslaughter, but I couldn't find anything about a verdict or any developments in this case really since it made the headlines back in 2021. So I'll update you guys if something happens in this case.
It's hard to talk about the funeral. We had just a very few people there. I think in the room maybe there were 12 people or so. I wanted to have the body cremated before I left the premises because I was so afraid someone would hurt him or take him. I remember looking up at windows because I was afraid of the media. And I was constantly watching to make sure someone wasn't on some ladder somewhere trying to look in, snapping pictures of Dylan in his casket or snapping pictures of us. He was just there in a cardboard box, and they allowed each of us to have a few minutes with him. So my husband and my son and I each had time with him alone to say goodbye. What I remember doing was just like, wanting to crawl in that casket with him. It's just like, because he was so cold, and I just kept thinking, I've got to get him warm. And I just wanted him to be warm. I kept rubbing his arms and patting his hands. And I said to him, and I said it out loud, and I said, "Darling, help me understand. Help me understand what happened." I said, "That's all I want to understand." And I didn't realize it until this very moment, but that did become my life's mission. And I think, I hope Dylan has helped me understand, because that's what I've been seeking for 20 years, is understanding. And I prayed and prayed to him to guide me and to show me some kind of a path to get through so that I can cope with this. And I can know what he never said to me. And I do believe that has happened over time, that I have gained some kind of an understanding.
Hold on, I'm about to record you because if something happened to me, they gonna have you on camera.
That's right.
Somebody come get their family member.
That's right.
Following me.
That's right.
Yep. Bye.
That's right.
You're not getting in my car.
Look.
You tripping. You tripping. Don't, you're not getting in my car.
Camera. Look, wait.
I unlocked my door,
Wait.
but you rushed to my passenger. You're not getting in my car.
Put
Sorry.
me on camera first.
Yep,
Hey,
you
look,
are on
I'm
camera.
Hey, look, she can't trust the most
No.
trustworthy.
I already
Get
told
nobody,
you I'm
man.
not single, so I don't know why you following me.
I'm a look. I even help.
I don't care.
Fuck with it.
Nigga following me around my car. I'm trying to get in. He ran straight to the passenger side. Can you get away from my door so I can get in my car, though? I don't even know you.
Hey, delete that camera. I'll grab that phone from you and break it.
And then, you know what? All these witnesses out here. Look.
Delete that on camera, please.
Well, can you get away from my car?
Yeah, but delete that recording.
I'll delete it as soon as I see you start walking that way. Because for my safety, you just followed me around this store, and then you following me to my car. So actually, I'm going to go back to the store because you are out of line right now.
Let's walk back to the store.
And you're not going to...
You can delete the camera.
First of all,
Delete that.
you're going to get away from me.
Yes.
Get away from me.
I'm waiting for you to delete that. You're not about to make no money off of me, cuz.
Ain't nobody making no money. First of all, do it look like I need to make some money off you?
Yes.
No, I don't. Look like you need to make some money off of me. No, it's not. That's why you...
Man, come on. Delete that up, cuz.
Can y'all call 911?
No more.
Can y'all call 911? This guy just followed me around the store, and he just... and he tried to follow me to my car and get in my car.
On March 13th, 2019, shortly after 10 a.m., the Grand Rapids Police in Michigan received the following 911 call from 25-year-old Kiona Griffins.
911 emergency.
Hi, I need help.
Hello?
I need help.
Okay, where are you located? I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't hear you. Are you able to tell me where you're located?
No.
Are you at a...
553 Sheldon Avenue Southeast. Please hurry now.
Okay, I got Sheldon. What's the number?
553. Hurry, please hurry up.
553 Sheldon. Okay, can you tell me what's going on there?
Can you just hurry up, please? I'm gonna die. You're trying to kill me. You already killed my name. You need to hurry up, please.
Okay, ma'am, I'll start the police that way. Can you tell me what your name is?
Kiana.
Who's the person who's causing trouble there?
Please hurry up, man. You got to kill me. Please hurry up.
7 minutes after receiving this call, officers arrived at the house at 553 Sheldon Avenue.
Call looked interesting. Trying to kill her.
The officers walked up to the front door and knocked a couple of times, but no one answered. One officer then goes around to the side of the house and approaches the side door. He checks to see if it's unlocked, but he too receives no response. A third officer then walks to the back of the house, and after looking around for a couple of seconds, she too determines that there's nothing of significance.
This just goes around. There's nothing in the back here. Looks like there's a fence on the other side, but...
So the officers return to the front of the house, and on the body cam footage, you can hear one officer telling the others that the situation might be a 1096, which means the caller might be dealing with mental health issues. So it seemed that at this point already, officers determined that there wasn't much to look into.
Sounds like she could be 96 too, you know?
Once they got to the front door, the officers called dispatch and asked them to try getting in touch with the caller again. After the dispatcher also couldn't get the caller back on the line, the officers decided to give it one last shot and checked to see if any doors were unlocked and peeked through the windows one more time. They determined that the house was quiet and that there was no imminent danger. 3 minutes and 42 seconds after first arriving on the scene, the police decide to leave, a decision that would haunt them for the rest of their lives because only 2 hours later 911 received a call, and once again a familiar address is mentioned.
911 emergency.
From the 553 Sheldon, my sister's not moving.
What's the address?
553 Sheldon, there's blood everywhere, my sister's not moving.
Okay, stand on line. You said shirt?
553
Sheldon.
Sheldon, Southeast. It's a yellow house, please. Hurry up.
Officers were immediately dispatched to the house on 553 Sheldon Avenue, and they arrived within a couple of minutes. Upon conducting their initial investigation, they found Kiona in her upstairs bedroom. She had been shot 4 times, and by the time police got to her, she had already succumbed to her injuries. In another bedroom of the house, they found another victim, Kiona's aunt, 47-year-old Charlotta Baber Bay. Her aunt was lying on her bed and watching something on her iPad when the killer shot her in the back of the head. When police found her, the iPad was still playing and Charlotta still had her earphones in her ears. It was clear that she was completely unaware of the impending threat. When police inquired about the status of the house and who lived there, they discovered that the house actually belonged to Charlotta's 64-year-old mother, Jacqueline Baber Bay. She left the house at around 8 a.m. that morning, and according to her, nothing was out of the ordinary. She verified that Kiona and Charlotta were both residents of the house, and that there was also another occupant, Charlotta's live-in boyfriend, who they only knew as 45-year-old Jay. Curiously, Jay was nowhere to be found, piquing the police's interest in him, but it seemed that gathering information on him was much more difficult to come by. Charlotta's family didn't know much about Jay, besides the fact that he was Charlotta's boyfriend and often kept to himself. He was actually Charlotta's first real boyfriend, and her family was just happy that she finally found happiness. Charlotta told them that she had met Jay at the library and that they soon formed a connection. Charlotta also told him that he had been in jail before for unpaid child support, but other than that, the family didn't know too much about him. Jay was quiet and quite reserved. He had no social media profile, he didn't have any friends, and didn't even have a smartphone. Jay and Charlotta also spent most of their time in her bedroom, as they were both quiet and a bit antisocial.
And some people say he was a little strange, he was a little different, you know, but they said that about my sister too. She was quiet, you know, she wasn't a social person. So just because you're quiet and you're a little different than everyone else doesn't mean that you're a murderer.
In the days following the murders, police began to scour various CCTV footage in and around the area, hoping to find any sign of Daryl Brown. It turns out that a number of surveillance cameras captured Daryl in the area of the crime scene shortly after the murders. While police were investigating the double murder of Kiona and Charlotta, Daryl was only 1 mile away at the Grand Rapids Children's Museum. CCTV footage showed him entering the building at 3:24 p.m. He calmly walks up to the front desk and tells the employee behind the counter that he knows someone inside the building that he needs to see. The employee reportedly made it clear to Brown that they couldn't allow him to wander around the museum unaccounted for, and after talking to the employee and the security guard, Brown leaves about 12 minutes later. Another security camera would capture him about 20 minutes later, on foot in the area of Leonard Street and Turner Avenue in Grand Rapids, about 3 miles from the crime scene. Police would later discover that one of Brown's ex-girlfriends had dropped him off in this area of town. Shortly after being captured on the surveillance camera, Daryl Brown seemed to disappear into thin air. The family of Kiona and Charlotta believes that had the police acted with more urgency after they received the 911 call from Kiona, they would have been able to track Daryl while he was still in the area. The police, however, maintain that the officers on duty that morning acted appropriately.
What was so senseless about this and just a tragedy and injustice is to walk up just with no sense of urgency, no sense of importance. I mean, just took their time.
My daughter didn't say someone's trying to assault me. No one's trying to beat me up. She said someone is trying to kill me.
It would have been East Grand Rapids, Forest Hills, or, you know, some other affluent area. They would have came with the whole cavalry. The house would have been surrounded, and they wouldn't have left until the owner came or till they found out who was in that home. They wouldn't have
and
left.
then at 1 o'clock or so, you get another call
and the
to the same house.
And the same
and you
officers
come here, now
back.
you got to bring my family out in body bags because you didn't care at 10 o'clock.
It was, you know, quiet and the doors were locked. You know, it's a shut-up house. You know, the house is a very protected Fourth Amendment. They're very, you got to have some pretty good reasons to go in. And, you know, there got to be something that drive them more than just a phone call.
On July 11th, 2020, a little more than a year after Kiona and Charlotta were murdered, emergency services were called back to the house on 553 Sheldon Avenue. When emergency services arrived at the scene, they found the entire structure engulfed in flames. firefighters were able to pull 2 persons from the home, Charletta's mom, Jacqueline Baber-Bay, who was pronounced dead on the scene, along with her 5-year-old great-grandchild, Emma Rayon Cummings, who later died at the hospital. The cause of the fire was ruled an accident. The family held a vigil for Kiona and Charletta the night before, and fell asleep without putting out the candles. The house eventually caught fire, which resulted in the tragedy. The family still feels that although it was an accident, these deaths could still be indirectly attributed to Daryl Brown. As of today, more than 4 years after the murders, police are still searching for Daryl Brown. He has been named as one of the country's 15 most wanted criminals, and has issued a reward of $25,000 for information leading to his arrest. Police believe that he may be hiding out, or could have been assisted by family in Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, or Ohio.
23-year-old Rebecca Brady was described by her neighbors as the girl next door.
Rebecca was always a straight-A student. Never really got in trouble. Just a very responsible person.
In 2015, all was going well for Rebecca. That is until she started hanging out with Ricky. Ricky was a low-life criminal, known around the neighborhood as Psycho Rick. Ricky was a self-proclaimed gangster who liked to flash around his jewelry, which really impressed Rebecca. She became infatuated with Ricky, and soon they began dating.
Sometimes there are situations where someone will spend time with a criminal, and after spending time with them, they'll become very impressed with that criminal's lifestyle, and they will become infatuated with the criminal, and a romantic relationship will form. So when we're thinking of this from Rebecca's perspective, she must be thinking, wow, I am really impressed with Rick.
In the beginning, Rebecca seemed very excited about her new relationship. That is until Ricky started to show her the seriousness of his crimes, at which time Rebecca began to get really scared.
Sometimes when you have a romantic relationship with a criminal, the relationship is initially really exciting. However, once you have that realization, wow, I'm dating a criminal, the relationship becomes very scary. If we're thinking about this from Rebecca's perspective, she's thinking, wow, I'm very scared. This is no longer exciting.